If you treated your personal health the way you treat your money, you'd probably be hospitalized and on a deathbed within a month. Stop treating your money with scarcity, reduction, and fear. We know that there are things like sleep, hydration, movement, and nutrition, and those are all required to be healthy. In wealth, there are 5 habits millionaires stick to that stop the harm to their financial health and actually grow their wealth. Stop budgeting. Stop locking your money away. Stop handing your money over to so-called experts. I know everyone tells you need to compound your interest, but accumulation is the slowest, most dangerous track to wealth. And plus, stop throwing your money away in mutual funds. Budgeting. I mean, this is something that so many people are taught to do. Let's think about it for a minute. When you budget, do you feel inspired? It's a very finite game. As a matter of fact, it's actually selfish. When you only think about what you can eliminate and cut out, you're spending your mental energy and your time on something that doesn't have to do with adding value, doesn't have to do with reaching other people, doesn't have to do with serving others. Really, the reality is when it comes to budgeting, if you're a train wreck and you're spending more than you make, it's a good idea. If you're making more than you spend, there's a different way to do something. It's called mindful cash management and value-based spending. Now, if we're looking at health, it's eating, sleeping, and movement that are essential, right? Well, if we're now looking at what's the difference in budgeting, it's about paying yourself first. It's about keeping more of what you make through efficiency. It's about expanding your means because this is what's essential for wealth. Now, what do I mean? I remember meeting about a decade ago Jessica and Russell. They live in Alabama. And they were so strict with their budget. They were actually amazing at it. Their life was about scrimping and saving, and no matter what, they would even sacrifice just so they could get ahead, right? They wanted to be prepared to retire one day. Now, they were definitely getting ahead financially, but they weren't feeling inspired. They weren't enjoying life. They were really surviving. And more than anything, they were not living their full potential. So here's what changed the game for them. And let me tell you about where they're at right now. They're able to buy the house of their dreams, including land for horses, chickens, and raising bees. They now have the situation where they're looking at their dream cabin. This thing looks like someone painted a picture because there's waterfalls close to it, all these trees, and the picture they sent was during the fall with all the leaves changing colors. Now, Jessica actually doubled her practice. How did this all happen? See, she's a doctor. And we initially found $5,000 per month. We did this in a couple ways. One is we just went through and found out where they were overpaying on tax. They owned a building for one of the practices, so we did something called cost segregation. The second thing is the way that she was paying herself, they're overpaying on self-employment tax, so we differentiated their income to take some salary when she's, tableside or chairside with a patient, and then the rest of the time take distributions because she had other associates, and we helped them find some money to hire a manager, hire someone that's in charge of the office, bring her up to do more as a doctor. That increased production allowed them within 1 year to buy a dream home that was basically a farm with a bunch of land. I went out and saw it. So let's break this down on how you could implement this. The first thing to do, instead of budgeting, and the thing that you want to do to have financial health is to automate your savings. Now, automate your savings. This is easy in theory. If you don't automate it, it becomes very difficult because of something called Parkinson's Law. So Parkinson's Law is as you have an increase in income, your expenses will rise to meet or exceed that increase within 3 to 6 months. Parkinson's, this is a guy that went out and studied time. And what he found is when someone had an employee and they asked him to do something, that they would wait till the last minute. The same thing started to apply when he said, look at money. Okay, someone has an increase. If there's no infrastructure, those expenses rise because businesses have insatiable appetites. Spouses might have insatiable appetites. I'm the one with the financial appetite, not necessarily my wife. So I'm more of the spender that way. But we've got to make sure it's automated to avoid Parkinson's Law. So how do you do this? You set up a separate account. It's called a wealth capture account. Now I named it that. It's just a checking, savings, or money market. By separating your funds so they're not commingled, if they're commingled, it's easy to spend. If your personal account just has everything going through it, what if you take and pay yourself first, take automatically and sweep or automate that money into a separate account? If you have a payroll service, you might have them send 2 checks, one deposit in your personal checking, one into this wealth capture account, which is an elegant tracking system. Or sometimes banks will just automatically sweep it that every time you make a deposit, you've paid yourself first. You've set some money aside. See, this allows you to eliminate reductionist thinking, where it's about, okay, I make my money, how much goes to entertainment, how much goes to clothing, how much goes to utilities, how much goes to savings, how much goes to retirement, and all of that kind of effort. When I used to do that, I'd be upset when the utilities went up during the summer. Or I'd be upset when my wife went and bought something for her classroom when she was a teacher because it wasn't in the budget. And I spent my time in frustration and in thinking of what I could do to eliminate and cut instead of produce and grow. So what's the alternative? Is mindful cash management instead of budgeting. Mindful cash management is once that automation happens, whether it's weekly or every other week, get an accountability partner. Could be a spouse, might be an outsourced person that you have that's an accountant or a controller or a bookkeeper, and just look at your finances and say, am I keeping more than I spend? Am I making sure that I'm not borrowing to consume? And just look overall and say, is there anything on here that I really didn't need to buy, didn't want to buy? And if you'll just wait 24 hours before buying something that might be an impulsive thing, which I tend to do, so I just wait for 24 hours, and if it's still important, then I purchase it. I just make sure I have the cash to do so. So mindful cash management takes us out of the scarcity thinking of cutting back and eliminating and diminishing, where we just are mindful of where our money is, but we can start to think like an investor, like a millionaire that's saying, what can I do to be more productive? Where can I allocate my cash? Where can I allocate my time? How can I impact more people? How can I serve those people? How do I create scale or leverage where this idea can go out there and impact more of the world? Free up your time and mind. Financial freedom is a state of mind where money is no longer your primary reason or excuse why you do or don't do something. Budgeting makes money your primary reason, your primary excuse, your primary limiting factor, and I want money to be an asset and ally instead of a liability. Okay, number 2. What are some of these things that will create financial health for you? You know, as fundamental as eating the right food, sleeping, just like when we're talking about health. Well, it's keeping more of what you make without cutting back. Another part of mindful cash management. How do you do this? Well, you could save taxes, because if you save taxes, that's money right there to your bottom line, and you didn't have to budget for that. You simply had enough insight and structure, and I've got great videos here on the channel on saving tax. One of those examples was cost segregation for Jessica and Russell that I started with their story, where they were able to accelerate the depreciation on their commercial property, right? Here's another way you can keep more of what you make. Restructuring loans. This is what we did for them. We took and restructured their loans because they had some really short-term loans and some inefficient loans. So what we did was we put all the loans inside of a mortgage, so it took all of their interest rates that were higher interest rates to lower interest rates, all their non-tax deductible interest rates to tax deductible interest rates, and then they could free up that cash. And by the way, if they wanted to pay off the mortgage, they could still do that with the cash that they were setting on the side. So if someone wants to pay off a mortgage, I'm all for that. But the method of getting there is important. And what we're looking at is, how do we increase and optimize cash flow? How can we be mindful about where that cash flow is going? And how do we automate that savings? So with them, we actually took half of the money of the $5,000 per month we saved through restructuring loans and saving on tax, and we just started setting that aside to their wealth capture account. The other $2,500 is where we went and said, let's go ahead and invest directly in an office manager. Combined with the increased production they'll bring, you'll be able to afford a higher salary. So they did a little bit of salary for the manager, plus upside potential with production, which came out of the new profits that they had, which was awesome for both the manager and for Jessica. And then what we did is we took that increased production from that business to buy the home that they wanted, that they had their eye on for over a year, and they were able to now move to the neighborhood they wanted and do more of what they wanted, which means they're their greatest asset, creating a more abundant life along the way, not waiting for one day, someday with retirement, not being irresponsible and spending more than they make, and still ending up with a better situation without budgeting. So 3, making more money. That was the key. See, Jessica invested in her practice and grew it substantially. Part of that was paying off her building with the additional cash flow in one check, right? So this building got paid off in just a few years. And once that building was paid off, they took that money to put her husband Russell through medical school because he wanted to become a medical doctor. And now they created a scenario that as Russell graduates and he goes and does his, residency, that they're actually going to sell the building and use the cash from that so Jessica could take a 3-year sabbatical, spend more time with what she calls her littles, which are 2 of her kids that are still at home, right? So she's actually improving her quality of life, supporting and investing in their family and in her husband to be out there and actually be more productive by, being able to be a doctor. So this is a really cool story. And whatever it is for you, I'm just giving you the story weaved in with the practical application. So let's go to the fourth part. What are millionaires doing out there? Well, they're creating cash flow and economic independence rather than accumulating money for 30 years, where a lot of people believe that wealth is a function of you have to have money to make money, you got to take high risk to get high return, and you got to wait 30 years for compound interest to kick in. That is old, it's antiquated, it's limiting, it's dangerous. I'm passionate against it because accumulation has us kind of shirk and abdicate responsibility, hoping that the financial institutions will take care of us, hoping it's going to work out in the long haul. But instead of accumulating money, let's think more like a bank. Let's think more like the financial institutions that sell us a different philosophy. Let's think more like what Jessica and Russell thought. How can you take these accumulation-based assets and turn them into cash flow investments? For them, it was more entrepreneurial income. They ended up adding another practice, hiring more doctors, because that entrepreneurial income came in even if Jessica didn't show up to the office that day. She'd already got the manager, right, who is now managing multiple practices. That gave her more time at home and with the farm that they had and spending time with her horse. So how can you have an investment towards cash flow rather than accumulation? Maybe you get your retirement plans and start creating cash flow with them. There's things called 72Ts that let you get the money out of there without a 10% penalty, just as one example. Or maybe use your credit to partner and acquire real estate with someone. They use your credit, use their expertise, and it creates cash flow. Chris Zano did this for his mom, bought a property with his credit, which got her a lower interest rate so that she can get into the home that he wanted her in, but even get cash flow from that. When she made a payment, it was less than she would have paid the bank, but more than he was earning if he put his money in the bank. So they're just cutting the bank kind of out as the middleman and treating it like they're the bank. Well, let's see how you can implement this in your own life. If you want to get started, like you're automating your savings, but you don't want to just leave it where it's earning 1% or less, or it's taxable, or it's exposed to the risk and liability, you can go to cashflowbanking.com. And you can start saving your money the same way the banks do. Where are they putting their reserves? Why not cut them out as the middleman? Why not earn interest rather than pay it? Why not get better savings without having to be subject to what's happening in the stock market? This is something JCPenney did to start JCPenney, Walt Disney did. It's something that even John McCain did to finance his presidential campaign. It's something that we see almost every bank, every major corporation, and you can do it too. Go to cashflowbanking.com and it starts to integrate everything I'm talking about here. Well, let's go to the fifth piece. Reducing and transferring risk. We're all in store for financial surprises. Most of them don't have to derail or harm us if we do the right things first. So what's the first thing? Create at least 6 months of savings, if not a lot more over time when you go to cashflowbanking.com. Second, store the money in a cash flow banking structure so you get a better interest rate than a savings account. You get better tax advantages. You're not subject to what happens in the stock market. You don't have an IRA structure where you have your money locked up till 59.5. You can use it as soon as it shows up. Go to cashflowbanking.com. Now, get an estate plan, right? Just a basic will and trust. What do you want to have happen if something happens to you if you have kids? What do you want to have happen with your money so that you can actually control the money from the grave with the words that you set up? How can you protect it from liability? And if you get wealthy enough, how do you protect it from taxes? That's all part of the estate plan. Get the right corporate structure, because corporations, if you don't have one, you have a 400% higher chance of getting audited. You have unlimited liability as an individual. Setting up a corporation can even set up a better structure for saving on taxes. And then set up insurance properly. For insurance, it's about ensuring the catastrophic things, never the inconsequential. So you transfer the risk onto an insurance company so that you have that peace of mind knowing that your money is protected. So you might be in a totally different scenario than Jessica and Russell were. But the framework works the same regardless of who you are. Are you a student? Guess what? It works. Are you almost retired? Absolutely. It is going to help you. Are you a business owner? Obviously, that's what we just covered. Are you an employee? This will work for you. These are the critical elements of financial health. They're just as simple and direct as what we have to do to be healthy as individuals. We need to eat well and have good nutrition. We got to sleep. We've got to move. We've got to just do some basic things that if we don't do those things, we're going to end up hospitalized. We're going to end up in a bad situation. So if you treated your personal health the way you treat your money, You would be hospitalized and on the deathbed within a month. Stop treating your money with scarcity, reduction, and fear. Free yourself from the limited results and structures that create scarcity. This is easier than you think. Now, you have the knowledge to transform your thoughts into profits and build the life you love. If you're looking for more on this topic, check out my video on 5 productivity hacks to stay focused and get stuff done. It's going to help you take back time, be more productive, and have the life that you want. So if you're wondering how you're going to implement these 5 things we covered, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to find the time, and with that extra time, you're going to be able to do this. It doesn't take 30 years, it doesn't take 20 years. You can get there within 1 year. So if you want a better life, go ahead and check the video out. I'll see you there.